Ты как? Дышишь? Что случилось-то?
Не знаю. Наверное, дно ударилось.
Я так испугался за тебя. Ты такая красивая.
Нет, ничего не получится у нас. У нас контракт.
Ну нахрен контракт.
Прям нахрен.
Прям нахрен, согласна?
The movie opens with the arrival of several well-dressed individuals in a grand city. One of them, Dennis, is woken up by a message from a man named Andre, who informs him that he has reached the city. Shortly after, a chauffeur shows up with a formal suit for Dennis to wear to a family gathering. Elsewhere, Rita, an elegant yet distant woman, also receives an outfit for the event but appears completely uninterested. Another character, Ilya, is in the middle of a heated argument with his girlfriend when his suit is delivered. The house staff holds her off so he can get ready. Meanwhile, Alexandra receives her own clothing package and nudges her partner, Petranko, to prepare. Everyone is clearly heading to the same reunion, one that seems important but emotionally detached. Dennis lovingly bids farewell to his wife Olga and their young son Fedya, gently rejecting their request to stay home a little longer. Eventually, all members of this so-called family are driven to a luxury hotel where Dennis is warmly greeted by his parents, Alexandra and Petranko, as well as his brother Ilya. When their sister Rita arrives, she barely looks at them, exuding disinterest and detachment. They all head to the penthouse where their host, Andre, awaits. Andre appears to be the orchestrator of this gathering and begins handing out gifts to his family. For Dennis, he gives a boomerang, symbolizing how he always returns. Before giving Rita her present, Andre makes a shocking announcement: Rita is leaving for Mexico the next day. The family is stunned. Their father, suspicious, suspects she's going to meet her abusive boyfriend. Rita confirms this and then accuses Andre of invading her privacy by accessing her phone to discover her travel plans. Andre simply says he's worried about her, but Rita fires back, asserting her right to make her own choices. Dennis, struck by her boldness, suddenly runs to the balcony and threatens to jump, claiming that if Rita can decide her fate, so can he, even if it means ending his life. In fear, Rita pleads with him and promises not to leave. She even rips up her passport in a dramatic gesture of commitment, convincing Dennis to step down from the ledge. Impressed by her act, Andre finally gives Rita her gift, a box of protection. After the emotional scene, the group prepares to leave. Before they go, Andre thanks Dennis for his spontaneous balcony performance. As they walk to their cars, each person gets a notification showing that 100,000 rubles have been deposited into their accounts. Clearly, this wasn't just a family reunion, it was a scripted event. The rest of the group confronts Dennis, annoyed that his stunt wasn't part of the plan. Dennis simply laughs it off and heads to his car, while Petranko tosses his script away, deciding they can just improvise from now on. That night, Dennis returns to his apartment where Rita confronts him about his little show. She's angry and confused, accusing him of manipulating her emotions. The tension escalates into a kiss, and soon they're passionately involved inside her apartment. But once the heat dies down, Rita reminds him that their contract strictly forbids intimate relationships. Dennis dismisses the rules, saying he just wanted to be close to her. Before they can continue, Andre arrives and jokes that they've already used Rita's gift. But then, he delivers a chilling reminder: they are supposed to act like siblings. Dennis argues that they only pretend to be a family when Andre brings them together. Outside of that, they're strangers. This exposes the big twist: all of them are actors hired by Andre to play the roles of his family. Since he's footing the bill, Andre warns that he can easily fire anyone who breaks the rules. To avoid legal trouble, he demands Dennis leave with him, instructing him to forget about Rita. Andre takes Dennis to an ice skating rink where the two men, pretending to be brothers, spend some time together. Dennis asks what the consequences will be for breaking the contract with Rita, but Andre doesn't give a straight answer. Instead, he urges Dennis to keep playing the part, to stay within the fantasy. Dennis, however, begins to question the whole concept. He speaks candidly, saying that having a paid fake family is easier than dealing with the disappointments of real relationships. Real family brings pain, expectations, and resentment, but this arrangement offers control. Andre listens without reacting. Andre claps his hands, and suddenly, all the people skating around them stop and leave. It turns out they were also hired actors. Moments later, two women's hockey teams show up, more paid performers, and Dennis and Andre take on the role of goalkeepers, making bets on which team will win. They laugh and play, lost in the bizarre but well-funded illusion. But things take a strange turn when one of the female players removes her helmet, and Dennis mistakes her for Rita. Shocked, he realizes that all the players are wearing wigs to resemble her. Andre's staff brings a bed into the rink, and the players push Dennis into it, undressing him as part of the surreal scene. At that moment, Dennis gets a text from his wife asking when he'll be home. Rita also messages, checking if he's having fun. Guilt consumes him. The excitement fades, and Dennis decides to return home. Over breakfast the next day, he's emotionally distant. He tries to reconnect with Rita through a text. Meanwhile, his son Fedia asks about his grandparents, curious because he's never met any of them. Dennis lies, saying they live far away. Then, just as he receives a cold rejection from Rita, he abruptly leaves, worrying his wife. Desperate for clarity, Dennis returns to Andre and requests another family gathering. Despite his suspicions, Andre agrees. Shortly afterward, Dennis gets a call from Olga and Fedia. The boy is excited about an upcoming school play. But Dennis, distracted and detached, coldly ends the call, claiming he's busy. Later, Andre's staff brings everyone together for a surprise shopping trip. Andre arrives dressed as Santa Claus and reveals that he's bought the entire shopping mall so the group can take whatever they want. It's extravagant, absurd, and hollow. Trying to create a moment with Rita, Dennis invites her to check out the mattresses, hinting at intimacy. She declines and chooses to shop with Alexandra instead. As the women try on clothes, the men browse hats. Andre takes this moment to pressure Dennis, asking when he'll finally settle down and start a real family. This wasn't in the script, and Dennis is caught off guard. Realizing that Andre is referring to Rita, Dennis goes along with it and tries to appear confident, saying he's got his love life under control. He later buys a bracelet from a nearby stall and offers it to Rita, but she sees through the gesture. The bracelet was bought with Andre's money. She realizes Dennis arranged the reunion just to talk to her. Hurt and frustrated, she returns the bracelet and tells Dennis their night together was a mistake. Dennis pleads, insisting he won't give up on her, but Rita calls him pathetic and walks away. Andre overhears the heated exchange and tells them to settle their issues. Rita boldly announces she's not willing to risk her contract for a fling. Crushed, Dennis quietly retreats and decides to buy a costume for Fedia's school play instead. A few days later, the fake family travels to a remote cottage for Andre's birthday celebration. Upon arrival, Rita isolates herself to avoid Dennis. Alexandra tries to keep things professional, suggesting they rehearse their lines using a balloon as Andre's stand-in. But tensions run high. Petrenko struggles with his script. Alexandra criticizes his lack of emotion. Ilya distracts everyone by strumming a ukulele. The family of actors has clearly lost their motivation. Fed up, Dennis pops the balloon in frustration and invites Ilya to the kitchen, using it as an excuse to talk privately. In the kitchen, Dennis confides in Ilya that he wants time alone with Rita. Ilya says she just left, so Dennis rushes after her. He finds her at the indoor pool and confronts her. She's irritated by his persistence and reminds him that she's not interested. Dennis challenges her to kiss him just to prove she feels nothing. She refuses. He offers to quit everything for her, but when she tells him to call Andre and resign on the spot, he hesitates. Rita takes this as proof that he's not serious. In a bold move, Dennis jumps into the pool, trying to prove himself. She joins him, but soon something goes wrong. Rita hits her head and loses consciousness. Dennis panics and pulls her out of the water, saving her life. When she wakes, she tells him what happened. Grateful and vulnerable, she finally gives into his affection. For a brief moment, they find peace in each other's arms. After spending a tender moment together, Dennis and Rita return to the cottage just as Andre arrives to kick off his grand birthday celebration. Fireworks light up the night sky, and the group sits down for dinner. As they begin delivering their pre-rehearsed lines, Rita suddenly breaks from the script. She announces that Dennis has something important to say. Everyone turns to him in confusion. Dennis pauses, caught between fear and truth, and then decides to pull Andre aside privately. He wants to confess that he's quitting everything. But before he can speak, something unexpected happens. Olga and Fedia arrive unannounced at the cottage. Their presence shocks everyone. Fedia joins them at the dinner table, introduced to the actors playing his grandparents, aunts, and uncles. The boy is thrilled, but he innocently asks Dennis why he never told him about this family before. Rita, ever sharp, comments bitterly that Dennis hides too many secrets, including the fact that he's married. Dennis, backed into a corner, pulls Olga outside and pleads with her to quietly leave with Fedia. But Olga has already discovered the truth. She found a receipt for the costume Dennis bought at the mall, revealing that it came with a prize, a trip to this exact location. Clearly, Andre orchestrated their arrival too. Before they can act further, Andre's staff swoops in and takes Olga and Fedia away to be handled. A sudden silence falls over the house. When Dennis and Olga search for their son, they realize the dinner table is completely deserted. Panic sets in. They split up to search. Dennis rushes outside, but instead of finding his son, he sees Rita and confronts her about everything falling apart. Their argument is interrupted by the sound of a gunshot echoing through the snowy wilderness. Following the sound, Dennis finds himself at the shooting range, where the other hired actors are letting Fedia fire a gun, as if it's just another harmless activity. Dennis is horrified, yelling at them for putting his son in danger. But Fedia smiles, proud of bonding with his family. Andre, unfazed by the chaos, meets Rita at the cottage doorway and casually announces he'll be in the kitchen. Dennis, still shaken, leaves Fedia in Alexandra's care and marches into the kitchen to confront Andre. But Andre, in his usual cold demeanor, mocks Dennis and even dares him to throw a punch. Instead, Dennis blurts out that both he and Rita are done, they're quitting the act. Andre just laughs. He already knows Rita signed a new contract to stay. Stunned, Dennis bolts out of the house and runs after the car escorting Rita away. He blocks the road, forcing her to get out and face him. What she hears next breaks the entire illusion. Dennis confesses the real story behind his life. His actual wife and biological son died years ago in a tragic accident. Andre had offered him a strange kind of solace, to hire Olga to play the role of a wife, and use her real son, Fedia, to fill the silence in Dennis's home. It was an arrangement born of grief and emptiness. Olga, a struggling single mother, agreed to the deal. Fedia, unaware of the truth, has grown up thinking Dennis is his real father. Unbeknownst to them, Fedia has overheard the conversation. Heartbroken and confused, the boy runs into the snowy wilderness. Dennis chases after him, only to find one of Fedia's gloves lying by a frozen lake. Fearing the worst, Dennis dives into the icy water, searching frantically beneath the surface. Andre's other actors are alerted by the commotion, but when Dennis surfaces, the boy is nowhere in sight. Moments later, Fedia emerges from behind a snowbank. He hadn't fallen in, he had only slipped and gone unseen. Relieved but emotionally wrecked, Dennis pulls him close, overwhelmed by the fragile bond between them. As they regroup at the cottage, Alexandra suffers a panic attack from all the chaos. Andre quickly ushers her and Petranko into a van to take her to the hospital. But before they leave, Dennis notices Petranko sneak a glance at his script, tucking it into his pocket. Sensing something isn't right, Dennis leaves Olga and Fedia behind and rides with them. At the hospital, he steals Petranko's script and confirms his suspicion. Everything, even Alexandra's meltdown, was scripted. It was all part of Andre's cruel, calculated drama. Furious and betrayed, Dennis storms out of the hospital, still in disguise from the clothes he stole earlier. He doesn't waste a moment. He heads straight for Ilya, one of the last people he hasn't confronted yet. Dennis accuses him of luring Fedia out earlier, possibly to keep the boy away while Dennis and Rita had their encounter. Ilya doesn't deny anything. Instead, he calmly shows Dennis a video that shatters whatever hope he had left, a secret recording of Rita rehearsing her poolside accident, the same one that made Dennis believe she was in danger. With this revelation, Dennis walks away, numb and devastated. He realizes now that even Rita's near-death moment, the one that made him think she had chosen him, was just another line in Andre's performance. But there's no time to mourn. He returns to the cottage where the rest of the fake family is gathered, laughing and relaxed as though nothing has happened. He grabs a gun from the shooting range and marches inside. For once, no one knows if what he's doing is scripted or real. The air turns heavy with dread as Dennis raises the weapon, not at them, but at himself. Tension seizes the room. No one dares move. Finally, Rita speaks up. She begs him to stop and begins revealing the truth, the plan, the manipulation, the entire setup. She admits that Andre anticipated Dennis would go off script back at the hotel, so he instructed Rita to seduce him. At first, she was reluctant. But when Andre hinted at offering her better contracts and more lucrative opportunities, she gave in. What was supposed to be an act began turning into emotional confusion for her, and guilt. Rita now realizes that Andre never wanted a family. He wanted control. He wanted to buy emotional connection and sell illusions as reality. Rita turns to the others and scolds them for remaining silent, for playing along without shame. She accuses Andre of bribing everyone with wealth, giving them a fake world where they could escape the disappointments of their real lives. Alexandra finally breaks the silence. She confesses that she followed the plan because it offered comfort, a life better than the one she had before. He slowly lowers the gun and finally puts it down. The room breathes again. Just then, Andre breaks the tension by clapping, as if applauding a successful scene. But for Dennis, it's the last straw. He walks out, his spirit exhausted and soul drained. Outside, he finds Olga and Fedia waiting. He kneels beside his son and quietly tells him that no matter what he heard, Dennis still sees him as his own child. But Olga pulls the boy away, refusing to let Dennis be near him anymore. She walks off, leaving Dennis to stare into the void of everything he has lost: love, family, purpose. Suddenly, Andre's voice echoes from hidden speakers across the cottage grounds. He mocks the idea of reality, asking what's so special about truth when fantasies can be created to bring people happiness. Why bother with painful emotions and broken relationships when you can manufacture smiles and perfection? Dennis clenches his fists, hearing the man's words twist deeper into his core. And Dennis was just a pawn. Dennis returns to the house one final time. He looks Andre in the eyes and calmly says, "I quit." Andre, enraged, throws the boomerang he once gifted Dennis, smashing through a window like poetic irony. But it's too late. Dennis is done playing games. As the shattered window whistles with cold wind, Rita rushes in, alarmed by the sound of glass breaking. She finds Dennis standing still, eyes heavy with realization, while Andre casually brushes the broken shards aside. Breathless, she tells Dennis that before he returned, she and Andre had been discussing a change in the script, one that would allow her and Dennis to be together without risking their roles. But Dennis doesn't say a word. For the first time, he sees everything, the falsehoods, the manipulation, the selfish ambition, all for what they truly are. At his son's school play, Dennis proudly watches from the audience, clapping genuinely as Fedia beams from the stage. For once, Dennis isn't performing, he's simply being a father. Elsewhere, the rest of the fake family begins to dissolve. Petro and Alexandra prepare to move out of their shared apartment. Their contract has ended, and their roles are over. But something unexpected happens. Alexandra hesitates. She's grown used to the life they've built together, even if it started as fiction. She asks Petro to stay. Despite orchestrating so many lives, Andre now finds himself surrounded by silence. He picks up his phone and dials Ilya, hoping to hear a familiar voice. But Ilya, now busking on the street with his real-life girlfriend, ignores the call. For the first time, Ilya is playing music not for a scene, not for money, but for love. Andre tries Dennis next, but Dennis doesn't even hesitate. He throws the phone into the trash, cutting ties with the men who tried to own his life. All Andre has left is Rita. She arrives at his estate, presumably to talk about her next role. Andre greets her with a heavy heart. He confesses that everything he did, the manipulations, the contracts, the scripts, was his way of creating a big, perfect family. A family that he never had. But instead of building something real, he ended up pushing everyone away. Rita tells him softly that she's still here, but he doesn't believe her. He knows she's only come for the job. With a hollow smile, he pulls out a gun and shoots himself in front of her. Rita screams and rushes to his side, horrified. But just as she begins to leave, Andre rises. He faked his death, one final scene, one last script. Rita, shocked and furious, throws her bag at him, screaming in anger. The scene wasn't for Dennis this time. It was for her. Andre wanted her to feel something real, and she did. Her grief wasn't scripted, it was genuine. She leaves in silence, her worldview broken, her ambitions hollow. The illusions that once gave her purpose now feel empty. For the first time, Rita is truly alone, and truly human. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.